Hello everyone, welcome again. Today we are going to start our new chapter, the Mughal Empire. In this chapter we will study how Mughal Empire originated. The Mughals came to India in 16th and 17th century and they expanded their kingdom from Agra and Delhi. And we see the Red Fort at Delhi. Once a time Red Fort from where Prime Minister addresses the nation on Independence Day was the residence of the Mughals at that time. Now we will study who were Mughals. It was from mother's side that there was Genghis Khan who was from Mongolia and he was the rival of Uzbek. It means there was rivalry between Genghis Khan and Uzbeks. And we can say Mughal dynasty was followed by Genghis Khan from mother's side, and Mongols were considered a caste, those who have massacred and caused a lot of destruction to the people. They were not considered good people by the common man. Now, from father's ancestry, it was from Iran and Iraq, where there were Taimurs. The rule was of Taimurs. Taimurs attacked in India in 1398, and from 1398, Taimur dynasty was established. And with the advent of Babur, invasions began in India and they were going on. And this is what we relate our history to the Mughal Empire. Now we will start with Mughal military campaigns. Babur was first emperor of the Mughals. To understand the timeline of Mughals, we will throw a light on this. First was Babur, then came Humayun, then came Akbar, then Jahangir, then Shah Jahan, also known as Khurram, then came Aurangzeb. After Aurangzeb, the successors were weak and this empire came to an end. It was declining. Now, the great-grandfathers of Babur were Miran Shah, Sultan Muhammad, Muhammad Mirza, Abu Sayyid and Umar Sheikh. There is no mention in history about these forefathers. Then came Babur. First of all, we will study about Babur. He was only at the age of 12 when he succeeded to throne of Fargana in 1494. He was forced to leave the throne by Uzbeks, the Mongol group. After wandering, he seized the throne of Kabul. He seized Kabul in 1504. In 1526, he defeated Ibrahim Lodi at Panipat, and in 1527 he defeated Rana Sanga at Khanwa, and after that 1528 he defeated Rajputs at Chanderi. This was all about Babur. Now we will study about Humayun. Now after Babur comes Humayun. Humayun, he divided his inheritance according to the will of his father. He divided his kingdom amongst his brothers. Then he was defeated by Sher Shah at the Battle of Chausa. Then he left for Iran. In Iran, he got help from Safavid Shah and he died in 1526. After Humayun comes Akbar. He was only at the age of 13 when he got the throne. He was looked after by Bairam Khan, and under the leadership of Bairam Khan, he conquered many areas. He campaigned against Suris and Afghans. In 1564, he captured Chittor and defeated Sasodias. And in 1569, he captured Ranthambore and he captured Gandhar. He also captured Kashmir in north, Pakistan in west and Berar in south. And he extended his empire very much under the leadership of Bairam Khan. After Akbar comes Jahangir. He is also known as Prince Salim. And he defeated Sisodias of Mewar. And his wife was Noor Jahan. Noor Jahan was his favorite wife and her name was Meher ul Nisa. She was so favorite of his that he started many coins and seals under his name. Then comes Shah Jahan. He was also known as Prince Khurram. He campaigned Deccan and where he defeated Afghan nobles. He annexed Ahmednagar in 1632. His son Aurangzeb became victorious and he defeated all his three brothers. And he killed one of his brothers named Dara Shikoh during war. Aurangzeb imprisoned Shah Jahan for lifetime in Agra. Now after Shah Jahan comes Aurangzeb. In northeast, Ahoms were defeated at that time. He succeeded against Shivaji and he annexed Bijapur and Golconda. He was having wars with the Marathas under Shivaji, and Shivaji accepted his patronage. Then Marathas followed guerrilla warfare. In that warfare, they were not to face the enemy. That was a type of hidden war, we can say. Then after him, the Mughal dynasty collapsed. What happened? The servants regained the power, and there was clash between his successors for the throne, and slowly Hyderabad and Awadh became separate. Now comes the Mughal traditions of succession. Mughals didn't believe in the rule of birthright, that the throne would be given to the eldest son. They followed Mughal and Timurid customs. They followed inheritance amongst all his sons, and they were not having good relations with Sisodiya kings. Now comes the Mughal relations with other rulers. The Mughals campaigned against who refused to accept their authority, and in this way the Mughals were becoming very powerful day by day. Many Rajput rulers married their daughters with the Mughals so that their relations would be good with them. Then the Sisodiyas of Mewar, they refused to accept their authority. Once they were defeated, they were treated very honorably. The Mughals made a balance between defeating and not humiliating. For example, Sisodiyas, when they accepted their authority or they were defeated by the Mughals didn't insult them or humiliate them. Rather, they gave them, we can say, respect. And this was the thing that made the Mughal Empire very powerful. And we can see Jahangir's mother was from Rajput ruler of Jaipur, and Shah Jahan's mother was we can say Rajput princess of Mewar. Then Mansabdars and Jagirdars. Mansabdar was a position he was a person who hold a position or a mansab or a rank, we can say. And this system was fixed according to the grading system. Grading was done through rank, salary and military responsibility which was given to that person. Rank and salary was decided through a system called Zat. Zat. The more the prestigious, the more the Zat, the more the prestigious position of the person will be there. Mansab, the duty of the Mansabdar was to bring cavalrymen for review and receive, to update their salaries and receive the salaries from the government. Then Mansabdars were to get salary as revenue by the Jagirs which were given to them. And on that particular area of land called Jagir, the Mansabdar was not supposed to reside there. He was only to collect revenue, and the revenue was collected by the servants on that fixed Jagir for the Mansabdars. Then comes the Zabt and Zimidars. The main source of income at that time was tax, which was imposed upon the peasants' production. And there was Todarman, who was Akbar's revenue minister, and it was he who was to fix the revenue, or Zabt we can say. The revenue system was known as Zabt. Now Akbarnama and Aine Akbari. Akbar had a friend named Abul Fazl. He ordered him that he should write about about the history of his reign. And in Akbarnama, Abul Fazl wrote, Akbarnama was having 3 volumes. In first volume, he wrote about Akbar's ancestors, and in second volume there was record of events of Akbar's time, and in third volume there was mention about Akbar's administration, household, army, revenue, geography, traditions and cultures. And all this was written in a book called Aine Akbari, which is very much famous in the history. Now we come to Akbar's policies. According to Aine Akbari, the empire was divided into subas, and it was subedar who was carrying their military and political functions of the suba, and suba was further divided into district, and those were further divided into parganas, and parganas were in villages, and the village there was patwari to look after all these functions. And at that time the noble commanders gained very much power, and they were having large armies. And by the end of 17th century, the nobles became independent. And this thing weakened the glory of the Mughal Empire, we can say. In 1570, when Akbar was at Fatehpur Sikri, he started discussions with ulema, Brahmins and Jewish priests there. because he was interested in the religion of different people and social customs of the people. Then the religious scholars of that time were not happy with all this, and they created disharmony in the society, and this led Akbar to think about a new religion where there will be peace and tolerance. So he became tolerant towards all the religions, and he started a new religion called Deen Ilahi, and he started the policy of Sulekul, means universal peace, where everybody should be given due respect. And in that Deen Ilahi religion, he took all the good points from all the religions and combined them in single religion and named it that Deen Ilahi, where honesty, peace, truth, justice prevailed in Deen Ilahi. And the universal peace, we can say, he wanted to have good points from all the religion, and he was giving due respect to all the persons of all the religions. Then came the Mughal Empire in the 17th century and after. At that time, administrative efficiency led to the economic and commercial prosperity. The Mughals spent a lot of money. The Mughals as well as the Mansabdars spent a lot of money on the salaries to their, we can say, workers. This made Mughals a powerful empire at the end of the 17th century. But slowly and slowly, the authority of the Mughals declined. The servants emerged as powerful persons, and the servants constituted new dynasties by the 18th century. Now, what was happening in India during Mughal Empire? Numerous changes were taking place in India, and a worldwide scenario shows that new dynasties were coming up. And this was all about the chapter, the Mughal Empire. And if you like my video, please click on the like button. Thank you. Have a good day ahead.